everyone is settled back down, hope you enjoyed the cupping, got a chance to stretch your legs for a little bit. I would like now to introduce our next speaker, Hernan from Racafe in Colombia.
Hey. So, thank you, James. Can you hear me there? It's okay? Perfect. Let me put a short video first.
Hemos recorrido desde el año 1953 una historia con el café colombiano que hoy te queremos contar. Todo comienza aquí, en las montañas de Colombia. Unas más escarpadas que otras, unas cercanas, otras lejanas. Algunas guardan memorias de generaciones, otras albergan nuevos sueños. Lo que todas tienen en común es que están cubiertas de un manto verde oscuro, de hojas brillantes que esconden unos pequeños frutos rojos que son recolectados por manos campesinas de hombres y mujeres. Y luego de un proceso tradicional son puestos al sol para así finalmente obtener el café pergamino. Así, producto de una estrecha y larga relación con los productores a lo largo y ancho de nuestro país, el grano seco es finalmente conservado y apilado, listo para iniciar un nuevo viaje. El viaje continúa aquí, en una de las 7 trilladoras de Racafe, en donde nos conectamos nuevamente con los productores. Esta vez, para hacer la recepción del café pergamino y donde finalmente, utilizando estándares de sostenibilidad, obtenemos el grano verde. Al interior de nuestra trilladora, clasificamos por tamaño, densidad y color para finalmente seleccionar los mejores granos. Somos apasionados por la calidad. Cumplir las expectativas de nuestros clientes es el foco de nuestro trabajo diario. De esta forma, sabemos con certeza las cualidades del café colombiano que vamos a comercializar y que el mundo va a disfrutar. Llevamos al mundo toda la variedad de café colombiano, cumplimos nuestros compromisos y establecemos relaciones a largo plazo, logrando que cada grano que hemos acompañado, analizado y seleccionado llegue a feliz puerto para iniciar su último proceso de transformación que cada uno de nuestros clientes le dará, convirtiendo el grano verde en un grano tostado, que finalmente estará ahí y aquí, en una taza de puro café colombiano. Sabemos cómo hacer llegar el café correcto al lugar correcto.
Thank you very much to everyone and from the team from Wakefield for inviting us. We are very excited to be here. It's my first time in UK and I'm amazed with this beautiful country. So thanks again. We are talking about a little about Colombia, Colombian coffee, something about geography, something about history, culture, coffee practices. And we will start with a very short presentation about what is Racafe. So Racafe is a company, it's an exporting company in Colombia. We started operation in 1953, so this is going to be our 70th birthday this year. We started very close to Bogota 70 years ago with a small milling plant in a small city called Quipile, and the company after 70 years has been growing, and now we are in 7 different cities. We are doing around 1.3 million bags of coffee from Colombia. We are a 100% Colombian company. We are not in any other country. We have a small business sales operation in Basel that is run by Ildiko Radix. That she's here. We trade all the qualities of coffee from the lowest quality for soluble industry to nanolots with some great processes and quality. Our purpose, and it's something that we deeply believe in, is to contribute to the sustainable development of our country by creating value in all our relationships. And we deeply believe in this. It's not about making a business. It's not about doing one good sales. It's about creating conversation. Let's get together. Let's start to work. Let's think that everything we do will continue for the next 10, 20 years. And that has allowed us to be here after 70 years. We have been working with DR Wakefield, I don't know for how long, maybe more than 15 years, 20 years. So in everything we do, we put a lot of love, and every time looking for a long relationship. We export to 37 countries, 101 ports, around 3,800 containers every year. We work in 7 cities. We have 7 milling plants. We will see later, but basically we have the Andes mountain range that runs across Colombia. And we have a milling plant in Neiva, other in Popayán, where we gather coffee from the south. We have a milling plant in Bogotá, where we mill most of all the micro lots. If some of you have been in Bogotá, it's very cold and the humidity is very low, so it's very nice to store high quality coffees. We have a milling plant in Pereira, other in Armenia. Used to be the coffee axis some years ago. It is still called the coffee axis, but actually there is more coffee in the south of the country. We have other milling plant in Santander, in Bucaramanga, and finally in Medellin. We buy coffee in 234 towns or municipalities, and from the 1.3 million bags that we have been trading, around 380,000 bags comes from relationship coffees, direct trade coffees, rainforest fair trade, some kind of certification. So let's talk about a little about history of coffee in Colombia. Sometime in the 18th century, around 1730, the coffee was brought to Colombia. It came from Venezuela. In that moment, we were not even a country, we were a colony of Spain. So there was, and actually Venezuela was still part of the same colony. The coffee arrived to Santander. The first records on coffee exports are from 1835, from the customs office in Cúcuta. This is the border city with Venezuela. Again, we were trying to become a country at the time. In 1835, we were not a colony from Spain, but we were finding as a country a way to become Colombia. During all the 19th century, the coffee started to grow, and from the northeast, it started to go down, and it started to be very important part of the Colombian economy. For the end of the 19th century, 1899, 98, it was the first source of foreign currencies and the first product of that be exported from Colombia. So it was very important for the Colombian economy. And in 1927, farmers decided to be organized into the FNC, National Growers Federation, basically to have some type of control and influence in economy and politics, and to work together with other farmers. They were already, coffee was already the most important exportable product in Colombia. We are at the beginning of the 19th century, 50% of the export of Colombia was coffee. For the middle of 20th century, 1950, 75% of all the income from Colombia were from coffee. So during the 20th century was a golden age for Colombian coffee. 1932, the government starts to regulate a little about quality standards. In the 60s, the FNC and the government start to work together to align with the Green Coffee Association standards of quality. And very important too, in the 60s, in the end of the 60s, there is the coffee agreement. This was an agreement between producing countries and importing countries from the Western Hemisphere that they agree on quotas and prices. So Brazil could produce an amount of coffee, Colombia could produce an amount of coffee. The price was agreed between consuming and producing countries, and the price was very good. So it continued to bringing a lot of wealth to Colombia. In the 80s, well, in some moment here, 1940, CENICAFE was founded. CENICAFE is a research coffee center for Colombia for agronomy. And in the 80s, CENICAFE develops the first variety resistant to leaf rust. It was the variety Colombia. And in 1983, leaf rust arrived to Colombia, but unfortunately, there was some development there. In 1989, the coffee agreement ends, and this brings some changes to the industry. After 29 years that the market was a protected market with agreed quotas between consuming countries and exportable countries, Colombia was exposed to a free market. So this meant that the Colombian coffee was exposed to supply and demand laws. Prices went down dramatically. We, as a country, saw the necessity to become more efficient, to find new ways to produce coffee. So some important technology took place in the milling process, storage, sorting. Before that time, there was a manual sorting of all the coffee in Colombia. After the coffee pact ended, or the coffee agreement, we started to see optical sorters, electronic optical sorting, and industry changed a lot after 1989. And very important, since Colombia had a quota for the market, there was not incentive to grow into new areas. So if Colombia have a quota, I don't know, 10 million bags, it was produced in Antioquia and in the actual coffee axis, something in Tolima, but if we could not export more than that, there was not incentive to go into new areas. After 1989, coffee, now there was no quota, there was no control, we could export anywhere, so coffee starts to grow into different areas. Huila, Tolima, Cauca, Nariño, that there used to be some coffee production, but was not important. Today, Tolima, Cauca, Nariño, I will show you in a map. It's this region. It's the biggest producing area of coffee. The traditional areas that was here in the center is decreasing. There's a lot of tourism, mandarin, citrus, lemon, banana, other type of crops. Let's talk a little about geography. This is our country. This is divided in 5 different regions, basically because of its geography. This is the Pacific, affected basically by the weather and conditions in the Pacific. This is the Caribbean. This is the Andean regions, where we have the Andes mountain range, which is divided into 3 when it goes to Colombia. This is Orinoquia. This is an area that goes until Venezuela, and we share a lot of culture and history with Venezuela in this area, and then the Amazons. But coffee not necessarily grows only in the Andes. It grows also in part of the mountains here in the Sierra Nevada, in Sierra La Macarena, and very important, in the Sierra Nevada, that is not part of the Andes mountain range, is a different geological formation. So here we have a more detailed map. So here's where the coffee started to come. This is Santander, and then Norte de Santander, where the first trees of Típica came into the 18th century. Then it started to go down. to Boyacá, Cundinamarca, and Tolima. And during the 19th century, this was the most important areas in coffee. Then during the 20th century, it went to Caldas, Risaralda, Quindío, and recently, in the end of the 20th century, it started to go down with a lot of volume to Valle del Cauca, Cauca, Huila, and Nariño. So from the beginning from the north of Pastos, that here in the south, to the end of the Andes, and also in Sierra Nevada, we can find coffee in all the geography. When the Andes goes to Colombia, it opens in 3 different mountain ranges: eastern, central, and western. But in all of them, we can find elevations between, coffee between 1,000, 1,200 meters up to 2,000, 2,100 meters. And we have elevations above 5,000 meters in different points of the mountain ranges. Very rich soils in volcanic ashes, and there's a lot of water in Colombia. We have a lot of rain. We have the influence of the Pacific, and also in this area we have in all the Andes we have more rain than we need in coffee. Let's talk about the processes that we do in Colombia. Very important, all the coffee in Colombia is hand-picked. This is good and is not good in other. It's good because we do a very good selection of the ripe beans, but in the other hand, the lack of technification, as you have in Brazil, make very expensive to pick coffee, very difficult. If you have been in Colombia, their mountains are very, stiff? It's steep. And it's very hard to pick coffee in these mountains. But right now, this is how we are doing it. All the coffee goes into the farms. It's depulped. Sometimes it's fermented in tanks without water, sometimes with water. In some more modern farms, there are now mechanical demucilaginators or some high water efficient fermenting systems. But everything is washed, demucilaginated, and then we wash the coffee. We dry it in some mechanical dryers, some sun dryers, but most of all the coffee is dried before it comes to the milling plants. Then this is where we start. We buy coffee from farmers, cooperatives, producers associations, intermediaries. We receive the coffee in parchment in the milling plants. We classify it from the beginning. We analyze the cup. We analyze the origin, where it is coming from, how is it processed, how is it tasting, how is the physical quality, humidity, and depending on that, it will stored in the milling plant, and then will be milled, cleaned, classified by size, by cup, and finally sent to roasters, exporters, consumers. So we have these 3 mountain ranges. We have different latitude or distance from the equator, but now we can have different elevations in any point of all the Andes. In Colombia, usually coffee is planted between 1,200 and 2,000 meters above sea level. It doesn't mean that there are not some farms above or below, but most of the coffee is produced in this range of elevation. Then we have temperature, we have sunlight, we have different sun brightness depending on the area. In the north it's very bright, in the south it's less. We have different type of soils. It's not the same to plant coffee in Santander or to plant coffee in Nariño. Soil is completely different, and water and rainy seasons are different. And then also we have the type of shade. Some plantations are without any shade. It's like you see only the coffee trees, and there are some areas in Colombia where you only see a forest and there is coffee in there. In the Sierra Nevada, in Cundinamarca, where sun is very heavy, simply farmers need to have a lot of shade. In Santander, you see a mountain with very beautiful wood trees. You will not imagine that in that mountain is full of coffee. So all these different factors create a matrix or with 9 or 10 different dimensions that will make coffee on each region unique. And not only that, in each farm you can find different altitude. Depending on the point of the mountain, you will have more or less sun. So talking about Colombian coffee is talking about a universe. You can find anything. Let me check. Then we have also genetics. So basically what arrived to Colombia in 18th century was Typica. This variety was brought from by the Dutch and the French to Venezuela, then went to Colombia, and Typica basically was the coffee that started to be grown in Colombia for the first 150 years. Then, the Caturra appeared in Brazil in the first years of the 20th century, around 1910. As a mutation of the Bourbon, and it was brought to Colombia around 1940 with some seeds came from Brazil and came to Colombia, came to Central America. And Caturra became very popular in Colombia until we've started to have leaf rust in 1983. Parallelly, the FNC and CENICAFE started to work with the Híbrido de Timor to develop some leaf rust resistant varieties. The first one, as I mentioned, was Colombia, and the second was Castillo. Now there is a new one named CENICAFE Uno that has become very popular. But right now, Colombia, I don't have the numbers, but I think around 90% of you can find in Colombia is Castillo and Colombia. Colombia was highly affected by leaf rust in 2008, 2009, 2010, and there is a big renovation program running into leaf rust resistant varieties. Right now, it's these are the more common varieties, Castillo and Colombia. Also to mention that Colombia produced washed coffee, and until the end of the 20th century, most of the Colombian coffee was depulped, fermented, and washed on each farm, and then dried on each farm. Then in the first year of the 21st century, some changes started to appear in the organization, not technological, but how processes were done in different places. So farmers started to depulp and ferment and wash the coffee in the farms, and in some areas they started to sell wet coffee. So in Cundinamarca, Huila, we started to see some drying stations and where people were bringing their wet coffee and it was sold wet. Well, they calculate the percentage of water and they will pay the price of the coffee. But the drying was done into big drying stations, some of them solar, some of them using energy. But that was a change in the organization. Also in 2010, 2011, we started to see new wet mill centrals, and I think that is an important change in the organization too, because now farmers are selling cherries. And the first one that I visited was in 2014, but now new wet mill centrals are appearing all around Colombia, focused on the efficient usage of water to have a lowest impact on environment, but also Colombia has 540,000 farms 90% of them are below 3 hectares. And all these farms, each of one decided to produce the coffee differently. So you have, it's very difficult to have homogeneous processes even in a small area. So these wet mill centers are looking to have more homogeneous washing process and fermentation process in Colombia. I think we will see more central wet mills appearing in the next years. Right now, it's not big, but they are starting to appear. Until 2015, and it's very important, we were only exporting, we were only selling washed coffee. And in 2015, we had a severe Niño phenomenon. And this created a lot of lower quality beans. Very small beans and a lot of broca. It's, how you say it in English, is the burrow, but it's the insect that, burrow, okay. So in 2015, we had a huge problem with the Niño and the low quality, and the FNC decided, okay, we're going to change some rules, and we exporters will be able to export lower qualities. And we will, right now, until that time and right now, FNC controls the quality of every single bag that is exported in Colombia, and if it is not, if the flavor and the quality is not according to what a Colombian coffee is, it will be not allowed to be exported. So they said, okay, we're going to trace a line, and if it's Colombian washed coffee traditional, it's going to be named Colombian coffee, and if not, it's going to be named product of Colombia. And we are only controlled for product of Colombia plagues and humidity, and it's below 13, and there is no type of insect on it. It can be exported. It can be not named Café de Colombia or Colombian coffee. It will be named product of Colombia. But something else changed, and is in that moment, farmers said, okay, so I can do naturals and I can export them as product of Colombia, because before November 2015, we could not export naturals, honeys, anything that which flavor was not the traditional washed Colombian was not able to be exported. So this, actually the regulation went in January 2016, but this definitely sets a change in the business. Now we are seeing amazing coffees with long fermentations, natural honeys. I remember in 2015 and 16 when you were visiting farms all around Colombia, people used to wash the coffee, ferment for 16 hours, 17 hours, the same way that their fathers and their grandfathers and their grandmothers used to do it. There was no innovation on the farms, and everyone was very comfortable doing things at the traditional way. Then 2018, 2019, we started to see a lot of farmers extending their fermentation times, learning, doing tests, researching. It's a long history, because again, it started in 2016, so it's just beginning, but now farmers are taking some risks. They are proposing new things. There are some people that is infusing coffees. We don't know anything about the infused coffee, but there are infused coffees and fermented coffees, and they put panela, and they put cinnamon, and a lot of things. But farmers are experimenting, and this is changing the business definitely, and also bringing new people to the industry, because this is exciting. So the youngest generations wants to learn and do new things. So with all of these, now we have culture. These are just different examples, but if we set a point in each region in Colombia, we will have different stories. In Sierra Nevada, we have 4 big indigenous groups, the Cancuamos, Cogis, Arhuacos, and Wiwas, that has been in those mountains for I don't know how many thousand years. And they plant the coffee according to their traditions, according to their beliefs. They are organic, but not because they consider that there's a market for it. No, they are organic because that's the only way that they consider agriculture. They will not consider agriculture using anything that is not organic. Santander has its own history, has its own people. This is where everything started in Colombia, where the first tree coffees arrived. Eje Cafetero in Antioquia. At the beginning, in the 18th and 19th century, the coffee industry was from big farms, very wealthy families, and at the end of the 19th century, coffee started to move to Antioquia and coffee access, and was a different agriculture based on the small farmer that we know today with the family, 2-3 hectares family, that all the family work together, the farm. So it's completely different to the big farms that we will see in Santander. Then as we mentioned, we saw the coffee going to the south at the end of the 20th century, where we have a lot of also indigenous groups in Insa, in Cauca, in Nariño, and Huila and Tolima may be the most important producing areas in Colombia. Great coffees, and each one of these has an history, has a culture, has a cooking tradition. Each region has its own history. So basically, these show us a big universe, complete diverse. There is not one Colombian coffee. There is a lot. There are hundreds or thousands of different types of coffees in Colombia. There is no way that you can simply describe it with a few words. We work with different growing communities. In 2022, we did trainings with 3,700 coffee producers. We work with them in good agricultural and farming practices, sustainability programs, soil analysis, climate change. We do not work with agronomy specifically, because in agronomy, we focus on what the FNC and CENICAFE are working with them. We promote FNC and CENICAFE practices in terms of agronomy, but organization. If they are doing research on fermentation, well, let's take numbers. Let's ferment for 14 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours, 17 hours. Bring your coffee to the milling plant. Let's cup it together. Let's see which time is better. How was the temperature? How was the humidity during the process? So we work with them in that type of practices. So with this big universe of coffees in Colombia, what you can do is, okay, let's work on classifications on each milling plant, because you can find a lot of different flavors in each region. In the north, it's more common to find chocolate and tobacco and less acidity. In the south, you will have a lot of acidity and red fruits. In the center, you will have a more balanced coffee, but in each region, you will find also different flavors. So at the end, our point is you need to work on each region a lot in classifying coffee, cupping coffee. We buy coffee again from thousands of farmers. So we have 9 quality labs. On each quality lab, we cup the coffee. We try to evaluate the quality, the flavor, humidity, traceability, and according to that, we can use it for any specific customer in Colombia or in other countries. Last week we had 14 Q graders, and we have 3 more in training, so hopefully this week it's going to be 17. We have a microlot plant in Bogota, as I mentioned. We have a development center in Bogota. In this place, our main office is in Bogota, but there is a lot of work, and we are always sending samples and copying, and it's very stressful. So we opened this second lab that is very calm with music, and we will receive customers, and we work on roasting science and water activity, and how is water activity affecting the life of the coffee, sensory experience. We train not only our team, we train a lot of farmers. We bring farmers to and leaders in the COPs to our development center to train them on copying, but also how to sell coffee, how to measure the yield, how to make a good negotiation when they are selling coffee, COP and origin profiling. We receive requests from customers asking for high acidity or high fruity notes or some profiles. So here's where we work. You are all invited if you come to Bogota. And also we work in preparation methods and try to learn a little about that. A little about sustainability. 2014, we started to produce our sustainability report under the methodology of Global Reporting Initiative. In 2008, we started the first solar rooftop milling plant in Colombia. Right now, I think there are a few more. In that time, that was the first one. Like in Huila, 28% of electricity we use to mill coffee comes from the sun. In 2019, we'll launch our internal sustainability standard, that is CRECER. I will talk about this in a minute. And this year, we are not only measuring carbon footprint at the company level, we are starting to use to make it as a product level. And what is CRECER? So in 2018, we started to see many many importers and roasters asking for traceable coffee that not necessarily would be certified by a third party, rainforest, fair trade, organic. They wanted, okay, I want traceable coffee. I want to know where my coffee was planted, if it was correctly handled, how is the family respecting the environmental laws. But again, not necessarily rainforest or other certifications. So we hired some experts in sustainability, and they help us to develop our own sustainability standard that is CRECER. Basically, we focus on the three dimensions of sustainability, that is economy, social, and environmental. Economy, we are focused on quality, very similar to what Wellington was saying. We consider that if farmers improve their quality, they will receive better prices. The best job that we can do is, in 10 years, many roasters in the world known regions by its quality, independently of us. So if Vianney become famous, that's great, because of their increasing quality, and they will receive better income. In the social aspect, we are focused on working together with in associatability, working together with other farmers of each region, sharing information, growing together. So our focus there is trying to organize small groups or to take farmers to become members of co-ops or association groups. And in the environmental dimension, we are focused on usage of natural resources and carbon footprint. That's the main focus. Basically, we visit farms. We evaluate 21 different criteria on sustainability. We take GPS points. Until now, we only have one point, that is one challenge, because Europe regulation, if the farm is above 4 hectares, now we have to have the polygon, and we only have the 1 point in the farm, but that is something that is being solved. So we go to the farm, we know where they are, we know how are they producing, how are they managing the water waste, how are they managing the pulp. We evaluate the different criteria, and according to that, we settle a plan to improve things on each farm. And then we visit every year. The idea also is to have data to develop projects. So in some areas we have found, okay, there's a huge lack of capacity of drying, or there's a huge possibility to improve the water treatment on each farm, or the management of pulp. So visiting the farm and understanding how they are producing, we can find proposals and ways to improve the production and the sustainability. So producers are not anonymous now. Each coffee that we exported as a specialty has a face, that there's a story. They have a notebook where basically we take note of everything that they want to do, or where they want to focus. We believe it creates better relationship with roasters and farmers, that you can have information, where is your coffee coming and how is the people living, and encourage to take care of nature, to have better relationship, quality, and traceability to the production. And that's it. That says, if there is any question, please feel free to do it. I will try to answer, and if I can't, please write to us, and we will be very happy to answer. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Hernan, for that very informative presentation. Just before we go into the Q&A very quickly, I'd be reminded to please speak your questions into the microphone so we can record it for the audio for the video this time. My colleague Fride will be going round. If anyone wants to ask a question, please grab his attention and we will get the mic over to you. Guess just to start things off, you briefly mentioned that you are teaching your producers about how to deal with climate change. Now, this is a very big topic here in the UK.
Absolutely.
What sort of advice do you give to producers in order to adapt to climate change at their farms?
Well, in terms of reforestation, we are working with them because in some areas, many trees have been removed. There are areas that have basically the coffee plantations are just there, and there are no good trees to support the soil in moments that we have a lot of rain. So what is happening, one of the things are happening in Colombia with climate change is in some region they used to rain 200 millimeters in May. Okay, now there's 200 millimeters in May, but in 2 days. So a lot of water is coming, and so we have a lot of landslides during the rainy season. So let's focus on reforestation, plant, conserve the forest, conserve the areas, protect the forest to prevent this type of problem. Second, water treatment. It's not only Racafe, it's the country is working a lot on to improve water treatment in different industries, include coffee. So, and this is something that will not affect necessarily the farm. It affects the people who lives down the farm if you are putting all the water waste into the river. So water treatment, the reforestation, and we are trying to work a lot in terms of better fertilization practices, because many farmers use fertilizers without doing any soil analysis, because the guy at the town recommended a fertilizer and a dose. So it's something that is not having an impact on it's having an impact in the farm, because it is going to have better production, but it reduces also the usage of fertilizer that it has a big carbon footprint.
Thank you. And you also mentioned since 2015 there's been a lot of diversification of different processes you've been exporting and a lot of experimentation. How have you noticed the demand change since 2015 as well? Have there been a lot more demand for these natural and different processed coffees?
Yes. Yes, every time we see roasters asking for these new coffees with a long fermentation and anaerobic, there is a lot of people asking, but personally, and it's a personal opinion, it's very difficult to trade these coffees, because if you produce 200-hour fermentation, caturra, anaerobic, and it was agreed with a buyer in UK or in any other country, and everything is very well organized from the picking to the delivery, it works. But when you are long on geisha natural, it's so difficult to sell it. You will always have a buyer for a nice washed, but for exotic coffees, it's something that should be produced before see the demand, understand what the roasters are looking, and produce what the roasters are looking. Don't start to do tests and experiments without having a buyer. It's my personal opinion. But it's growing a lot.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions from the audience at all they would like to ask Hernan?
Yeah, I would like to know a bit about the consume in Colombia. How is growing behind the productive area as well? So if most of the people just drink for more special coffee?
In Colombia?
Yeah, general.
Colombia is a poor country, and I would say 99% of the coffee that we consume is very low quality. Specialty coffee consumption is growing, and maybe as a percentage is growing a lot, 14, 15, 17% per year, but again, the base is very small. The 95% of the coffee that we use, actually most of it is from Brazil. Most of the good quality coffee we produce is exported, and we will buy low grades from Brazil, from Honduras, from Peru. I think Colombian consumption should be around 2.4, 2.5 million bags, and we are importing something about 1.5 million bags. So it's growing on a specialty, but the base is very small, and most of the coffee that we consume is low grades, but we do not produce enough low grades for our local.
Great. Any other questions from the audience over here?
Thank you. Just going back to the issue of carbon for a minute, and particularly thinking about your data gathering and the relationship you have with individual producers. I know Colombia's done quite a bit of work looking at whether we can see a sort of positive carbon balance for coffee. Do you see any realistic opportunity for producers to be able to use that as a new income stream going forward? And it's essentially earning money out of being a positive carbon commodity.
I cannot. I don't have an answer. I have heard a lot about selling carbon bonds and trying to find an income on the forest conservation, but I don't have information about how it can be monetized. Right now, I have only heard from different origins, comments, but I don't have information. Unfortunately, I cannot give you an answer on that.
Anybody else? Yeah, at the back here.
What's the biggest challenge working with so many small farmers in terms of quality?
In terms of quality, no, it's to keep stability through time. Because if you work in a farm, in a big farm, a single estate with the procedures, which every year follow the same procedures, you will have a stability on the quality. In Colombia, you need to couple out and classify it, because maybe the coffee from inside is tasting with some specifications, and maybe next week it will be changed because of the temperature was too low and the fermentation process took longer, or the farmers left the fermentation process for shorter time or different conditions. So sometimes in terms of quality, sometimes it's very difficult to have a stable quality during the time.
Perfect, thank you. I think we've got time for maybe one or two more quick questions if anyone wants one. Frida, if you don't mind running across the room again.
You identified the axis of coffee, the core producing region, and you said that production was actually going down there as farmers were turning over the land to other agricultural practices,
Yes.
bananas. Why is that? Is that purely economic, or are there other reasons?
Yes. For example, in Quindío, in Risaralda, it used to be 100 years ago the most important area. It's a beautiful area, so a lot of people has been going to live there. New housing developments, and now people are buying houses for their retirement, so this has changed a lot. They found that maybe avocado is a better business. It's economic, but it's because farmers are improving their farm. They found better crops. I won't say it as a negative.
Is it a long-term threat to production?
Is
it a long-term threat to coffee production?
I don't think so. This is in some areas. No, coffee has been moving to new areas. I don't think that is. Well, we still have a lot to do in terms of productivity, but I don't think that area reduction is a threat for coffee.
Thank you. If anyone has one last burning question. Andrea?
So I asked a similar question to Baba. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
So as is common in most producing countries right now, finding labor to pick coffee has been a massive issue, and I think particularly in some regions of Colombia where opportunities for different kinds of jobs and industries where the work might be easier or safer. How is a company like Racafe addressing some of the safety and health and safety concerns for workers on Colombian farms in order to make it easier for people to work those jobs and therefore have more labor in the future?
Well, we work very close with the farmers to improve the condition of living of the pickers, of the workers, to have practices according to the local laws. It's again 90% of the farmers own the farm, and they work their own farm. Is not necessarily they are hiring, but with the big farms. In Colombia, big is 50 hectares. With the big farms, we do a lot of work with them with the owners to create a culture of respect and well-being with the employers, to have health and security facilities, so they can wash their hands. They have nice restaurant. They have nice place to sleep, according basically to local regulation. It's something that we do in the training we do with the farmers. It's not. We are not farmers. We don't own the farm, so we can only promote good practices, and it's in everything. Speak or meeting we have, it's something we promote.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so I think we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. You can go 5-minute break, actually, I've been told. Running slightly behind schedule. If you want to go use the bathroom, get yourself a cup of coffee or some water, feel free. We'll start again at 12:35. And thank you once again, Hernan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.